Thank you for meeting with me. If this is your first visit to the Bellflower Casino Resort, I hope you're finding it a pleasant one. I've owned this place for over 30 years. Running the Bellflower has been my life's work, a life which is almost over. I have terminal cancer, and I've been fighting it for years, but my time is coming to an end. I've already come to terms with my condition, but it leaves me with a problem. I never found time to start a family, and I don't have any close friends. This hotel is all I have to leave to this world. It's my legacy, but I have no one to carry on that legacy once I'm gone. I need you to help me decide on the best person to inherit the Bellflower. I've made a list of 4 candidates, each of whom has a strong connection to this hotel. Unfortunately, I don't know any of them very well. I've invited them all here for the weekend under the guise that you want to do an interview with them for a book that you're writing about the hotel. Now, they're being paid a healthy stipend for their time, so you'll likely find them willing to answer any questions you may have. I want you to learn everything you can about them and report back to me if you discover anything relevant. Their names are Ashley, Mallory, Sarah, and the last one is a couple of newlyweds named Todd and Becca. Ashley is a magician. She's been holding her magic show here at the Bellflower since we added a theater during our last renovation. She's been here longer than any employee, and she's as financially tied to this place as anybody, aside from myself. She's a private person, so I don't know much about her personal life. Mallory is the unluckiest person I've ever met. She's also one of the nicest. I've never seen so much tragedy befall such an undeserving person. I unfairly gave her a hard time when we first met, but we get along well now. I gave her a complimentary stay here at the hotel to apologize, and she wouldn't stop talking about how much she loved it here. I think she might even like my hotel more than I do. Like the others on my list, I don't know very much about her. Sarah is the daughter of the Goodley family. She's been staying here with her parents on family vacations for years. That family is so wholesome that they make the Brady Bunch seem edgy. They're a welcome breath of fresh air here in Las Vegas, and I love the idea of someone with very strong moral values like Sarah taking over the hotel. I barely know anything about those two. Their names are Becca and Todd. I met them today when they were checking in. They came to Las Vegas to get married, and this trip is also doubling as their honeymoon. Yeah, I know it must seem odd to consider leaving my estate to a couple I barely know, but honestly, I barely know any of the people I'm considering. I figure that if they're staying here for their wedding and their honeymoon, then they're going to have a very strong emotional connection to the Bellflower Hotel. Plus, it almost seems like fate that they happened to check in today while I'm trying to make this decision. I'm counting on you to ascertain whether or not they're good people worthy of consideration as heirs.
I'm Ashley. I live here in Las Vegas. I spend most of my time practicing magic, and I am single. What else do you want to know? I've been performing my magic act here since the last time it was renovated. Huh. Never heard of the place before that. I like it here. I like Mr. Davenport, too. He's very hands-off. I appreciate the fact that he doesn't try to give me input about my show. I'm not great at dating. It's probably because I really don't enjoy getting to know people. That's why I think that dinner and a movie is the perfect first date. You have just enough time to exchange facts about each other, and then the food comes and you can't talk because your mouth is full. Then you go sit in a dark movie theater, where talking is frowned on, and you watch a movie. It's great, especially if you're with one of those people who insists on talking all the time. I'm great at breakups, though. Yeah, not very good at dating. I've tried dating apps, but I haven't found any that I really like. There are people who talk all the time, even when they have nothing to say. If you have nothing to say besides hello or hi, why talk? I really don't enjoy misguided politeness. It's like when someone tries to do something nice, but it has the opposite effect. Like you're walking towards a door, and you're too far away, but someone decides to hold it open for you anyway. So then you have to rush to get through the door so they don't awkwardly stand there holding it. Do you know what's easier than rushing through a parking lot to get through a door? Opening it yourself when you're there. When you're part of a magic show, you spend countless hours practicing. We only perform 4 nights a week, so it would seem like it's an easy schedule, but we spend maybe another 30 hours practicing. More if you're bringing someone new into the show. It's a lot. I don't particularly like any of the dating apps out there right now. They're all designed to let you chat with the person before you meet them. If you chat with the person before you meet them, then you find out how horrible they are and you don't want to meet them. Then you don't even get the social rewards of having gone on a date. You know what I want? I want a dating app where you don't ever have to go on a date. Where when you match with a likely candidate, the app takes the photos that you've each submitted and places them in a likely dating scenario. Then it returns the photo to you. You can put that photo on your social media platforms, and it looks like you've been on a date. And you've never had to go on a date. Everybody wins. The problem most people make when they're breaking up with someone is that they try to be too nice. And that's very selfish. Not the good kind of selfishness either. When you're too nice with someone and you're breaking up with them, it makes them sad. It makes them wish that you weren't leaving. It makes them think that maybe they should stay with you. When you're breaking up with someone, it is the one time of your life that you should be a complete asshole so that they actually feel relieved. They feel like a burden has been lifted. Yeah, you should always be an asshole when you're breaking up with someone. That's why I'm very good at it. Everyone talks about selfishness like it's some sort of sin. Selfishness is necessary. Everyone wants good-paying jobs. Want them to be in our country and not another country. That's selfish. Everyone wants those good-paying jobs to be in our city, not another city. That's selfish. I want those good-paying jobs to be mine, not someone else's. That's selfish. Selfishness is necessary for us to survive. I haven't really talked to him that much. We talked a little bit when this place was being renovated. My magic act was becoming popular and I was looking for a place to take up residency, and he was looking for an act to host in his arena. It worked out great. We've really only spoken a few times since then, usually about business. I guess you could say he's one of my best friends. I don't like interacting with people unless there's a purpose. I would say I'm a people person, but I grow weary of them quickly if they overstay their welcome or talk. I prefer quiet types who show who they are by their actions. A lot of people will have shallow, fake friends who will tell you all about their day, but they'll never lift a finger if you need to move or get rid of a body. I really don't like people like that. I've never had to get rid of a body. But if I did, I wouldn't be stupid about it. Everybody just tries to bury the body or throw it in a river with something heavy on it, trying to keep the cops from finding it. The cops are going to find the body. But if I was going to get rid of the body, I would throw it in the river with a bungee cord harness attached to it, and then I wouldn't attach the other end to anything. So when the cops found the body, as they're going to, they wouldn't assume it was murder. They would just assume it was someone stupid who deserved to die. People win Darwin Awards every day. Why not take advantage of it? You've never heard of the Darwin Awards? They're my favorite. They're named for Charles Darwin, based around his survival of the fittest and genetics and stuff. So, whenever someone dies doing something that is so stupid, they do the human race a favor by draining themselves out of the gene pool, they get a Darwin Award. I used to love watching them on the internet, but now really it's just fails. They aren't legitimate Darwin Awards. So I watch a lot of roller coaster disasters instead. They're great too. Oh, it's understandable if you didn't know that I had my own magic act. I'm not on any of the posters. I used to be, but I learned early on that audiences expect a magician to be male. So I hired a male presenting actor as the magician. I started working as the assistant. But ticket sales, foomp, shot way up. Oh, we promote it like it's his show, but he's essentially worthless. He doesn't do much of anything. I've actually replaced the actor that's played the magician 3 times. Audiences never noticed. They're fine as long as there's someone on stage who looks like they expect a magician to look, usually with a goatee. For some reason, a goatee is mandatory. I'm not mad about it. My act has actually gotten a lot easier since I started working as an assistant and not the magician. I'll let you in on a little secret. The assistants are actually the ones who perform all the tricks in a magic act. The magician really is just there so that people have something to keep their eyes on. They're gonna watch him, see if they can figure out the trick, see if he's doing anything sneaky. Everyone really just ignores the girls in the shiny outfits. But we're the ones making the tricks work. Now, magic is all about misdirection. The magician is the biggest misdirection of all. You can get away with anything as long as someone's attention is focused on something else. That's the key to all of magic, half of life. Everyone knows it. Nobody cares. Back when I really was an assistant, I worked for a magician, the great Zambini. He based his signature trick on this very thing. See, we were part of a traveling carnival, and our stage was outdoors. At the beginning of the night, the back of the stage, a Zamboni was parked. It was the Zamboni. And he would tell the audience that at some point during the evening, he was going to make the Zamboni disappear and no one would notice. So about halfway through the evening, we would have this assistant come out that the audience had not yet seen. Her name was Kelly. She was particularly alluring. And the other assistants and I would help her up on top of a platform, and we would begin tying her up with scarves. We'd really take our time about it, make it very erotic, and Kelly would wiggle and pout and make these cute little squeaky gerbil noises. While this was happening, Zambini would pull out his keys and drive the Zamboni off stage. Then he'd run back. We would make Kelly disappear in a fairly standard trick, and when it was done, Zambini would be standing where the Zamboni was with his arms outstretched, like he had just accomplished the most amazing feat in the world. And the audience loved it. They would clap like it was the best thing ever. It was grotesquely sexist, but it worked. I haven't talked to her since we worked together. I'm sure she's doing fine. Supremely attractive people have it very easy. I'm sure she married rich or got kidnapped by human traffickers and sold on the black market. Either way, she's living in a big house with someone else paying all the bills. She's great. When you're starting out in this industry, you will take anything you can get. It was rough. I was on the road for 6 months. Before that, I was an assistant to a comedy magician. That was even worse. I'd still take that over any normal job. Oh, comedy magicians. Awful. None of it's real magic. It's all just jokes. I don't have any jokes in my act. Well, I have one, but I don't do it every night. I just save it for when I have a heckler. I've tried working normal jobs, but they all have the same problem. You have to deal with annoying people. You're not allowed to hurt them. I worked in a call center once. That wasn't too bad. I mean, you couldn't touch the people to hurt them, but we were given scripts, which I'm sure were designed to emotionally torture whoever we talked to. The sadists that wrote them were really good at their jobs, too. Yeah. Oh, and there was this computer system they had to navigate before they were ever even allowed to connect with us. Did a great job of wearing down their will to live. By the time they got to us, they're hanging on by a thread. Yeah, that was nice. Most people are annoying. Some people take it to a whole new level. Some people are professional at it. Like those people who work in lotion kiosks at the mall. They know their product isn't any good. If it were any good, they would sell it in a store. But no, they're at a kiosk, harassing people who walk past until someone is so guilty that they can't just ignore them, and they stop. And then the lotion people start putting lotion on this poor chump. And it's awkward. And the person can't get away. And they massage them. And it's awkward. And the person can't get away. Until this poor slob buys something that is unnecessary and overpriced just to make it stop. Whenever I see those people, and they've got someone in their clutches, I just walk up and I say, it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the whole skin. They never seem to know how to respond to that. The fact that hecklers are still a thing is proof that society is a failure. I don't know why we still allow them to exist. I have a good way of dealing with them, though. Whenever we get a heckler that's too bad, I mean, it's really bad, I motion to the other assistants and they notify the magician. And they invite the heckler up on stage to help us with our next act. So I bring out a specially made tall box and the magician announces that he is going to make the heckler disappear. We put them in the box, we wrap the box up with chains, and we wheel it off stage. The audience loves it. They laugh, they clap, the heckler's never heard from again. Works great. And then backstage, I feed the heckler to my alligators. I don't. I don't have alligators. The box only opens one way. I push it up against an exit door, and when the heckler opens it, they can only leave. I've gotten exactly 2 negative Yelp reviews. Worth it. No one ever uses real magic in their magic act. It's all parlor tricks and very bendy assistants who can fit into small spaces. Machinery. Audiences just like to pretend it's real. If anybody ever came out and started performing sorcery or blood magic, the audience would lose their mind. That'd be nice. Every aspect of our society has failed. Look at politics. We live in a democracy that is so divided, no matter who gets elected, half of the population is going to be miserable and angry. Families are divided. Lifelong friendships are torn apart. We are so at odds right now that left and right Twix don't even come in the same package anymore. You can buy anything if you know where to look. I used to buy weed on the dark web before it was legal. I know there are people who buy fake IDs on the internet. Anything. You can find it. They say human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry, and I want to know how they know that. Are human traffickers reporting income tax, or are they just making up numbers? Oh, I never had a fake ID. I grew up in a small town. It would have been pointless. Everybody knew everybody else anyway. And really, the only reason to have a fake ID is so that you can buy beer before you're old enough. And I don't drink. I did buy a lot of beer for other kids when I was in high school, though. I mean, sort of. I would buy the non-alcoholic beer, and then I would peel the labels off, and I printed my own, put something, generic and fancy sounding. And then, during study hall, I would just sell it at a drastic markup. Nobody ever called me out on it. I don't think they ever figured it out. I even remember hearing some of the kids brag about how much beer they were able to consume. Oh, they must have been very shocked when they attended their first college party. Oh, I know weed is legal now, but back before it was, everybody would smoke it anyway. It was just one of those crimes you never got in trouble for, like speeding or practicing medicine without a license. The sale of human organs is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. And who do you think is taking those organs out of the people who lose them and putting them into the people who need them? I doubt it's someone practicing with a license. But I'm not doing it. I am not involved in that industry. I dabble in taxidermy, but I am not skilled enough to take a kidney out of someone and put it in someone else and have one of them live. Taxidermy is a hobby of mine. Whenever I find a dead animal, I take it home and I stuff it. And then I save them, and when I have enough of them collected, I take them to dying children in the children's hospital. Because children love stuffed animals. I think everyone should have hobbies. I like taxidermy and sensory deprivation. I made my own sensory deprivation tank once. I like to lie in it and be alone with my thought. It's very peaceful in there. I slept in it once. It's like sleeping in a coffin. I like to visit kids in the cancer ward. Yeah, I ask them to draw me a picture, and then I trade them for one of the stuffed animals. It makes them feel better to barter. No one wants to be pitied, just given stuff, even kids dying of cancer. I save all the pictures they give me. They say that a piece of art at least doubles in value once the artist dies, and I'm sure their parents will pay top dollar in about a decade. People don't barter enough these days. They don't haggle enough either. For instance, if someone has a poster for a lost pet and they offer a $100 reward, now in my experience, most people would just take the $100 and be happy. I try to haggle a little. I'll go for at least $150. I mean, no one posts their best offer on a flyer that's going on a telephone pole. Yeah. I return lost pets to their owners as a side hustle. See, whenever I see a flyer that has a reward offered and a phone number, I take it down. And then I post the flyer with my phone number and I offer half the reward. Then someone else finds the pet, returns it to me. Then I do a nice little markup, call the original phone number, and reunite the pet with its parent for a profit. Does very well. Have you ever tried sleeping in a coffin? It's relaxing. It's cozy. There's extra layers of noise insulation in case you have loud neighbors. I slept in one back when I had college roommates. Oh, I didn't actually go to college, but I lived in student housing after high school. See, you don't actually have to be a student to live there. I hated having roommates, but it's all I could afford. I bought my own place as soon as I could, but they kicked me out. High school is awful. I mean, you undergo years of traumatic experiences, and then when you finally escape, they invite you back for a reunion so that you can go spend more time with the same people who made your childhood traumatic. I don't understand it. Do survivors of other traumatic experiences have reunions? I mean, do people who lived through a plane crash get together and reminisce about the turbulence they experienced before it all went pear-shaped? I don't understand reunions or nostalgia in general. People cling to the past like it was the best part of their lives. But do you know what most people spent most of the past doing? Waiting for the future to come so their miserable lives would improve. Really makes no sense to me. I don't live in the past. I look to the future. I am so ready to be in the future. The second my contract is up, I am out of here. I am retiring to someplace very far away with very few people, and I am never going to think about Las Vegas again. Can't wait for that. Yeah, I want to see what the future holds, because I'm done here.
What is there to say? I guess I'm a little bit down on my luck right now between jobs. I had 2 job interviews earlier this week, and I'm hoping to have more soon. I don't like to admit this usually, but it might be important for your book. I'm actually homeless currently. It might surprise you that I actually came from a fairly wealthy family. My dad was some sort of hotshot furniture salesman, and my mom was a cable TV installer. We actually owned our own house. It was double wide. But yeah, I guess I always thought I'd be a big success like my parents, and I guess it's just all right that they're not around anymore so that they don't have to see what my life has turned into. You know, I didn't exactly meet their high expectations. I used to work at the Bellflower as a professional gambler. That's actually how I met Mr. Davenport. His security guards thought that I was cheating, actually, so they brought me in for hours and hours of questioning. Thankfully, they looked through the security footage and saw that I was not cheating. They could have just kicked me out, but Mr. Davenport was so kind, and he actually put me in a room for a full week to make up for the trouble that had been caused. This is the nicest hotel I've ever been in. Oh, I've been an orphan almost my entire life. Yeah, my parents died in a fishing accident when I was really little. The only living relative I have is my Uncle Albert, but we don't really talk at all. He's been in and out of prison my whole life. My Uncle Albert? Oh, he goes back to prison all the time. He's actually serving a life sentence, but he keeps escaping. I don't know how he keeps getting out, but the guards catch him and put him right back in. Albert is from the dark side of my family. We didn't like to associate with them very much growing up. We were always a little bit ashamed to be related to Albert's side of the family, to be honest. I mean, I know that I'm not some great success or anything like that, but at least I'm trying to better myself. Albert's mom was a lawyer, and his dad was a member of Congress for over a decade. It's like they didn't even try to have honest jobs. My parents used to take me fishing on the southern coast of Alabama. I don't think we were supposed to be fishing at the spot they found, but there was never anybody around to tell us to leave, so we did it anyway. It was really nice, and almost like a real vacation. Anyway, we didn't have a real boat. We had just 3 of those floating pool chairs that we'd like paddle out and just sit there and fish. It was really relaxing. Anyway, one day my parents caught an undertow and the current pushed them out deep into the ocean. So luckily I managed to get to shore, but it took me a while to find anyone for help. The authorities searched and searched for them, but all they could find were their pool chairs, empty. It was really bad, but I was placed into the foster care system. I wasn't in the foster care system for very long. When I was 9, I was placed with a foster family, but unfortunately, my foster parents died the first night that I was with them. A burglar broke in and murdered them. My foster mom was able to call the police, but by the time they arrived, they were already dead, and the police couldn't find the burglar anywhere. The prosecutor on the case assumed that I had murdered my foster parents and even accused me of killing my birth parents, so he got the judge to sign off that I was going to be tried as an adult instead of a child, even though I was only 9. Luckily, they did find the real killer, and it turns out he was just really good at hiding, and he was in a crawl space under the house. So, unfortunately, due to this legal loophole that in Alabama, I was now considered legally an adult, so I was out of the foster care system, and I had to find a job, so I worked in a coal mine. It wasn't the work I wanted to be doing, but it paid something. And then when I was 18, I moved out of Alabama. I didn't have much money saved up, so I had to hop onto a train like they do in the movies. Only it wasn't exactly like how they do it in the movies because there were no big empty cars with those open sides that you could just hop right onto. The best I could find was a small platform that stuck out from the train a couple of inches. I was able to put my feet on that, and then there was a handle that I could cling to. I figured that I could just stay like that for an hour and then I'd be across state lines, but unfortunately, the train picked up a lot of speed and I was stuck clinging onto the train up until Detroit. Well, I hadn't intended on going to Detroit, but since I was there, I decided to make the most out of it. I got a job as the mascot at a children's restaurant. It was kind of a cheap ripoff of Chuck E. Cheese. And I had a costume that wasn't so much a cute mouse as a scary rat, but luckily the kids didn't seem to mind too much, but I was only there for a little bit anyway. The first time I got my paycheck, I went to the bank and I was still in my rat costume, and unfortunately, 2 bank robbers came in also in costume. So when the police showed up, they assumed that I was with them and arrested me along with them. I was able to sort things out at the police station and I got off, but my picture in costume was already in the newspaper, so my boss didn't like seeing his mascot on the front page of the newspaper for bank robbery, so I got fired. My first job interview was for a job selling jewelry. I didn't have any experience, so they said they couldn't hire me. My second job interview was at an adult video store. They needed someone to clean up those video booths after customers used them. I also didn't have any experience with this, but I really wanted the job, so I lied and said that I'd been doing it for 15 years already in 3 different cities. I thought for sure they were going to hire me, but for some reason they didn't. I guess that was karma telling me that I shouldn't have lied. I wasn't always homeless. Actually, when I was in Alabama, I had 3,000 square feet to myself. I felt like a wealthy land baron or something. But I didn't have a house on the land, but I did have a really nice tent at first. It was great. I lived there for a full year before I could save up for a house. Well, not a house. I actually bought an 8-foot by 10-foot shed that was fantastic. It was just as good as a house. Had a roof, 4 walls, a window, a door, everything I needed. I don't know why more people don't just live in sheds. That was the nicest place I ever lived. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after I bought that shed, it was swallowed in a sinkhole. So there was really nothing left for me in Alabama. I decided to chase my childhood dream and move to Albuquerque. Oh, that was the wildest thing. I actually ended up here in Vegas by accident, but while I was here, I figured I might as well try gambling. It turned out I was extremely bad at it, though, and I actually caught the eye of a wealthy man who asked me to be a professional gambler for him. So he would give me money to play craps, and then he would bet on me losing. And we actually made a great team, and he made a ton of money off me. But the casinos started noticing what was happening, and they started kicking us out. Mr. Davenport was the only one who was really nice about it, though. Well, I didn't mean to end up here, but I was on a bus on my way to Denver, and the bus stopped here, and I got off to use the bathroom, but I guess I took too long because when I came back out, the bus was gone, and it also had my luggage on it, so when I got here, all I had was the clothes on my back. But I'm glad it happened because I had a really good time here. Oh, he was a rich person just like you'd see in the movies. I mean, he had a 3-piece suit on with a jacket and a matching vest and everything. His car had a hood ornament on it, and he even had brown socks to match his brown shoes. I wouldn't know what to do with that kind of money. I think the first thing I might do would be to buy a monocle, though. I've wanted a monocle my whole life. I've had really bad vision in one of my eyes since I was a little girl. This one time I found a pair of glasses that had a missing lens, but the lens it did have was very close to my vision needs. So I had that. It was perfect. Almost perfect. The lens was on the wrong side, so I did have to wear them upside down. Eventually, I tried to take the lens out and put it in the correct side, but when I did, the lens cracked and I couldn't wear them anymore. Well, I wasn't in Denver proper, but I was about half an hour away at this ski resort very close by. Anyway, I worked at the ski resort first as a ticket salesperson, but then I studied and worked really hard to become a ski instructor. But sadly, like all my jobs, it didn't last. The first time I took a group out to go skiing, I was supposed to bring them to an intermediate level hill, but unfortunately I read the color coding wrong and I brought them to an advanced hill. There's a huge difference between an intermediate hill and an advanced hill. I, of course, lost my job. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to move to a big city. You know, one of those places that musicians write songs about? A place like Albuquerque. When I finally moved to Albuquerque, it exceeded my expectations. All the glitz, all the glamour, it was incredible. And the best part was the people were really nice. It was great. I'd probably still be there today if it weren't for the puppy incident. A little boy had lost his dog, and the entire community banded together to try to find it. Every business had some sort of poster in the window asking for people to find the dog, and I actually came across the dog, but unfortunately it was already dead, so I buried it. And then I wanted to do that thing that they do in TV shows where you replace one dead animal with a new alive animal that looks the same. So I went to every pet store in town until I found a dog that looked like the dog that I had buried that had died. I brought it to the little boy's family and they seemed so happy. It was great until about 2 weeks after that when I found out the truth. The little boy and his family weren't looking for a lost pet. Unfortunately, they were looking for a dog that had bitten the little boy. They wanted the dog to see if the dog had rabies. Since I didn't bring the correct dog back, they couldn't test the dog, and it turns out the dog that bit the little boy did have rabies. That's why he died. The story doesn't have a happy ending for the little boy, and I couldn't face the townspeople anymore, so I had to move out of Albuquerque. Oh, I've done it all. I've delivered pizzas, I had an ice cream truck, I worked in a pet shop, I even worked on a cruise ship. I've had some truly wonderful jobs, but sadly nothing ever worked out. I worked at a really fancy pizza place that had a big dining room and everything. It was great. Anyway, the owner, my boss, was trying to sell it, so the potential buyers were coming in to see it and to go over the books. The owner said that we had to look as busy as possible when they came in to make a good impression, so anytime there was extra space in any of the pizza ovens, we just started making cheese pizzas. I was given the cheese pizzas anytime I was making a delivery, and I was told that I needed to just throw them in the dumpster, but I felt really weird about doing that because the town had a lot of homeless people. So instead, I decided to do a good deed and pass them out to them instead. After the potential buyer had looked through the restaurant, he was being driven back by my boss to his hotel room, and on the way, I guess they saw about 20 homeless people with our very distinct pizza boxes. I don't know what he thought, but he didn't end up buying the place after all, and I lost my job. I got a job at a pet shop, but I only worked there a few weeks before I got fired, unfortunately. Before I worked there, I really didn't know anything about animals, so I did learn a lot on the job, thankfully. Anyway, my boss would have me open up, and then he'd come in a couple hours later, around noon. And one day, we got a hamster delivery, 2 hamsters, and my boss had left a note saying, "Put them in a fish tank." The thing is, my boss didn't specify it was supposed to be an empty fish tank, so I put them in a fish tank that had fish and water in it. It also had a lid on the top. Anyway, the hamsters almost drowned, but thankfully we had this machine that was pumping air into the bottom of the tank, so the little guys were really smart and they took turns breathing out of the air hose. It was a dream of mine for a really long time to have my own ice cream truck. I love the idea of having my own business, being an entrepreneur, and selling wonderful sweet treats to people over jolly music. Anyway, it took a really long time, but eventually I did buy my own ice cream truck. Well, it wasn't actually an ice cream truck, it was an El Camino, and it had 2 freezers full of ice cream in the back, so anytime I wanted to sell ice cream, I'd just have to park and get out and go around back. It was great, and I'd still be doing it if I hadn't lost my license. I wasn't just selling ice cream out of my El Camino, I was also living in it. The ice cream chests in the back were plugged into the cigarette lighter inverter, so the engine had to be running at all times so that the ice cream wouldn't melt. This made it really hard to sleep. Anyway, one night I had a few drinks and I was trying to sleep, and of course the engine was still running so that the ice cream wouldn't melt, and a policeman came over to see what was happening. I didn't know this, but you can actually get a DUI if you're drinking while your engine's on, even if you aren't moving, so I ended up being sent to prison. I actually got really lucky with my prison sentence. I was sentenced to 3 months in prison, but they let me out after 2. Also, I was sent in right before Christmas, which was great because on Christmas Day, they gave everybody a delicious cinnamon bun. It was the best cinnamon bun I've ever had. I guess sometimes Lady Luck is on my side. That was the most amazing job I've ever had. It was also the shortest. Unfortunately, the first time that we went out, we actually hit an iceberg and sank like the Titanic. Some of the lifeboats got destroyed, but most people were able to get on one. The rest of us had to survive by climbing onto the iceberg. After the ship sank, there were over 80 of us stranded on the iceberg, and we had no way to call for help, no food, no water. So out of desperation, we took off our clothes and we tried to form a sail out of them, hoping that we could ride the iceberg to shore. The sail we made out of our clothes didn't end up working, and it didn't move the iceberg at all. Actually, after an hour, it just blew away in the wind anyway, so we were just left there half naked and freezing. Luckily, a cargo ship came upon us, and they were able to rescue us from the iceberg. But we didn't speak their language, and they didn't speak English, so we couldn't explain to them why we were all half naked on an iceberg. They dropped us off in Quebec after a very awkward trip. I don't know what happened to the other survivors. When we got to Quebec, we all just separated. Hitchhiking back to the United States from Canada was really unpleasant. Everyone only spoke French, and I was still half naked. Luckily, someone did stop, and they had a pickup truck, so they let me sit in the back, and they stopped 20 miles from the New York border, which was great because I only had about a 6-hour walk back to the States. I know they say you shouldn't hitchhike because it's dangerous, but the thing is, I've had a lot of luck hitchhiking over the years. The first time that I hitchhiked, I was going from Detroit to Albuquerque, and these 3 really nice dudes in a hippie van picked me up. It turns out they were a traveling folk band, and they taught me how to drive so that I could drive down the highway while they were practicing in the back. It took a really long time to get to Albuquerque because they kept having to stop for shows, and we did have to camp in their van every night, but it was still great. You know, I've met my fair share of famous people over the year, but this was really cool because they were real musicians, and we got to get pretty close. Also, by the time we got to Albuquerque, I was so good at driving that I passed my driver's test the first time. I met Orville Redenbacher at the airport once. It was awesome. He was in line trying to get his luggage, and I thought, should I approach him or should I not? You know, I imagine a famous popcorn magnate like that is probably constantly having groups of people swarming him trying to get his autograph. But anyway, I decided to go for it. So I went up to him and I said, "I love your popcorn commercials." And he was really flattered and turned out to be a super nice guy. He even signed my cast. Anyway, that was in 1997. I found out later that he had actually died in 1995, so it couldn't have been him, but it was a really nice old man, and it was still a really fond memory. Oh, I wasn't at the airport to catch a flight. Sadly, I've been homeless a few times throughout my life, and one of the tricks that I picked up was that you can go to an airport and pretty easily find a place to sleep. I think they're used to having people who need to find a quiet spot because their flight is delayed or there's a long layover, so it doesn't look too weird if you find a spot and just sleep there. But there is a trick, and that's to not overstay your welcome. So after 7 or 8 hours, you gotta get out of there. Also, you should never go back to the same airport twice unless a few years have passed. You know, I found a few creative places to sleep over the years. You just gotta know the tricks. A lot of homeless people will choose gas stations and fast food restaurants to sleep at overnight, but I think that's actually a really bad idea because they're out in the open and the employees are probably gonna have to kick them out. So when I was homeless, I always made sure to find a very hidden spot. So, for instance, I once worked at a fast food restaurant and I noticed that there was a ladder out back. So I climbed it and there was a beautiful roof that I could sleep in. Anyway, I slept there every night that I was working there and just made sure that no one saw me go up and no one saw me come down. So I had my smartphone, thankfully, to set an alarm to make sure that I'd be down in time and also get to work in time. It was working really well for a few months, but then eventually someone did see me go up on the roof. They figured out that I was sleeping there, and I did get fired, but, you know, I can't really blame them. I always thought that smartphones were such a waste of money, but honestly, once someone told me about the food delivery services and how much money you can make doing those, I had to get one. And I'm glad I did. It worked really well for a few days when I had my car. But sadly, all those miles really wore it out, and I had to bring it into the shop, and I just couldn't afford the repairs. So I ended up just getting a bus pass, and that was how I was making my food delivery runs. Didn't work quite as well. Actually, sometimes I would have to transfer to multiple buses, so it ended up taking like an hour to deliver something. Eventually, I just kind of stopped doing it. I wasn't making any money. I broke my arm at the zoo. You know those signs that warn you not to feed the animals? Well, you should really pay attention to those. I tripped over one, landed on the sidewalk, and broke my arm. It was okay though because I had an appointment at the hospital later that day anyway, so I just had my doctor fix my arm then. Oh, I've been to the hospital a lot. I tend to get hurt pretty easily. You know, I've had so many x-rays and MRIs. I'm surprised I don't have superpowers. I've broken a few bones over the years. I've been in all kinds of accidents. A hunting accident, a skydiving accident, normal stuff like that. I broke my leg hunting. I was sitting in a tree with my friend and we had a few drinks and she told a really funny joke. Anyway, I was laughing so hard that I lost my balance and I actually fell out of the tree right on an 8-point buck. They still gave me credit for the kill. When you see people parachuting on TV and in movies, it seems like they're being gently lowered onto the ground like a feather. But I am here to tell you that is not the case. Even with the parachute, you're actually falling really fast and impact can be really rough. I found that out the hard way. I was walking around and a skydiver landed right on top of me. Actually broke my arm in 2 places and gave me a concussion. I never saw the skydiver again, which is too bad because I'll never have a chance to thank them. Well, If it weren't for them landing on me, I wouldn't have gotten a concussion, so I wouldn't have gone to the hospital, and they wouldn't have given me an MRI, so I never would have found my brain tumor. They say there's nothing they can do for me, but at least now I know I only have 3 or 4 months left to live, so I can start checking things off my bucket list.
I'm Alice Goodley.
I'm Walter, and this is Sarah.
It's so nice to meet you.
We're from Utah. We are very lucky to live there. Our neighborhood is just dandy. But then again, I guess everybody says that about their hometowns.
We have friendly neighbors, a brand new school, and the best darn volunteer fire department you could ask for.
Well, it's not perfect, though. Crime has been on the rise lately.
Oh, that's true. Last Halloween, 2 houses got toilet papered.
Yeah, a bunch of us pitched in, and we got those houses cleaned up by noon. Still, it was kind of disappointing to know that something like that could happen only a few blocks away.
Cleaning up all that toilet paper was really fun, though.
That's our Sarah, always looking on the bright side of any situation.
Being on the volunteer fire department is considered a huge honor in our town.
There are too many volunteers every year, and they can only let in so many people, so it's very competitive.
Well, the exception is on Thanksgiving. During the parade, they make everyone in town an honorary member. It's a nice gesture, and everyone gets very excited about it.
We go all out for Thanksgiving.
We go all out for all holidays in general. You should visit on Independence Day. We have a top-notch fireworks show every year.
Oh, and don't forget about the Easter egg hunt. That's my favorite. You'd think the hunt was just about the kids, but it's just as much fun for us grown-ups, too. The night before the hunt, all the adults get together and spend a few hours hiding the eggs. The next day, all the kids spend a few hours looking for them. It's like the adults get to play, too.
Sarah takes hiding Easter eggs very seriously. Some of the places she finds to hide them are downright diabolical.
Well, I remember what it was like hunting for eggs as a kid. The best feeling was when you'd find an egg in a hard-to-find spot. If someone doesn't hide them in places like that, then the kids won't get a chance to feel like that.
Sarah never does anything without giving it her best effort. You should hear her music lessons.
Sarah's learning to play the piano.
I'm not that good, but I'm trying really hard to get better.
Well, at the rate she's improving, though, she might be a famous musician by this time next year.
She's exaggerating. I wouldn't want to be famous anyway. Piano for me is just like a hobby, like your knitting or Daddy's gardening. When people get famous, they move to a big city so they can make lots of money. Once they've made all that money, they move to the place they really want to live. I already live in the best place I can imagine, so why would I leave in the first place?
I like to make sure my family's eating at least some natural organic food.
Everything is so processed these days, and you can really taste the difference when you eat fresh vegetables straight from the garden.
Daddy works really hard on his garden.
I don't consider it work. I enjoy it. Plus, it gives me a chance to spend time outside.
Adults are weird. They can do anything they want, but if they want to, I don't know, play in the yard, they won't do it unless they find an excuse.
I love Sarah's outlook on life. I do crocheting and knitting. I make clothes and blankets that I donate to local homeless shelters.
We used to just donate money, but there are just too many people in need. There's never enough money to go around, and winters get very cold in Utah.
And since we're able to buy fabric in bulk, we're able to donate 5 or 6 times as many supplies as we could otherwise.
The hats she makes are really nice too. They're so much more comfortable than anything you can buy at a store.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
We love this hotel. We come here every year on vacation.
We take a lot of family vacations together. The only thing better than seeing the world is seeing the world together.
This is my favorite vacation we take. I love coming here to Vegas.
That is true. It's all she talks about for months leading up to the trip.
I do get pretty excited about our vacation time.
I take 2 weeks vacation from my dental practice each year so we can go on a family trip.
It's safe to say our Las Vegas trips are our favorite. This is our 3rd year in a row coming here.
Next year, I'll be old enough to go to the casino floor.
Sarah won't be 21 until next month.
My father and grandfather were both dentists. All the men in my family were. Well, except for my brother Stephen. It's a family tradition.
Stephen is quite the rebel. He lives by his own rules.
He's a pediatrician in Salt Lake City. That's clear across the state from us.
He only comes to visit a few times a year, usually on holidays.
We do drive up to Salt Lake City once in a while. My friend Linda lives there too, so we get to visit her and Stephen in one trip.
A few years ago, we heard that Las Vegas had undergone some changes and was very family friendly now. Once we heard that, we just had to come check it out.
And we were not disappointed. There's a lot more to do here than just gambling and attending wild rock concerts. There's an aquarium, a history museum, and gondola rides.
We even found a soup kitchen that lets us volunteer every time we come here.
We do participate in some of the wilder activities too. Last year, we toured the Pinball Hall of Fame. I figured we are in Vegas after all, we might as well get a little crazy while we're here. None of us gamble, but I don't understand why it has such a bad reputation.
I've never gambled before, but I do want to try it when I turn 21 next year.
I've tried it. Gambling isn't really for me, but it seems like an innocent enough pastime. Linda was my best friend back in high school. She was a bit of a troublemaker back then. To be honest, I was a bit of a rascal myself.
It's true. Alice and Linda were big mischief makers. Now, it may seem hard to believe now, but Alice was quite the prankster in her teenage years.
How come I've never heard about this before?
Well, I am not very proud of some of the things I did, so I don't talk about them much.
Can you tell me about one of them? Please.
Okay. Every April Fool's Day, Linda and I would send someone a pizza they didn't order as a prank. We paid cash, so it couldn't be traced back to us. And we'd also tip the driver so they wouldn't get stiffed in the gratuity.
I hope none of those people were trying to lose weight. That could knock someone off their diet.
We were young and reckless. We didn't think about the consequences back then.
I understand. I certainly got into my fair share of trouble when I was younger.
We've never been to a rock concert. We really should go sometime, though.
Walter wasn't the biggest fan of rock music for the longest time, but it was Sarah that convinced him to give it a try.
All the rock music I heard growing up just seemed so edgy. I figured it wasn't for me.
Daddy just hadn't listened to the right bands.
That's true, because I wasn't the biggest fan of rock music either, when all I ever heard were wild groups like the Beatles and Billy Joel. If Sarah hadn't shown me that there were less rowdy bands out there, I'd probably still be missing out.
It is amazing how much Sarah's changed our lives. Our trips to Salt Lake City are one of the few things we have trouble agreeing on. There's just so much to do, and everybody wants to do something different.
I like to go to the zoo, Sarah likes the planetarium, and Walter likes the Natural History Museum.
We started playing a board game right before our trip. The winner gets to pick where we go.
Sarah usually wins, but she's very gracious when she does. Last time she won, she picked the zoo to make Alice happy.
I won twice in a row. I would have felt selfish if I picked the planetarium both times. Plus, we hadn't gone to the zoo in forever. It wouldn't have been fair.
Isn't she just the best?
I've caused as much trouble as anyone. I was once suspended from school for smoking. Another time I got detention for a whole week for cutting class. I'm no angel. I skipped study hall and snuck into the school gym. The principal caught me and I got a week's detention. It's really not a very interesting story.
Well, that's not the whole story, is it? You didn't mention why you went to the gym.
I was helping to set up a surprise party for the principal. His 25th anniversary at our school was coming up, so we had to do something for him. My study hall teacher knew and gave me permission to skip class, but I couldn't say that without ruining the surprise party. Still feel bad about lying to the principal.
Now, honey, lying is sometimes okay when it's to help the person you're lying to, like when we got you your glasses.
I know, Daddy, but it still feels wrong.
Sarah used to babysit a little girl named Emily. She really looked up to Sarah. She always said she wanted to be just like her when she grew up.
One day, Emily had to get glasses, and she looked really cute, but she hated how they looked. She was super self-conscious about it, and she couldn't even stand to go to school anymore.
That's when Sarah came to me and asked if I could get her vision checked. She figured if she wore glasses too, then Emily wouldn't feel so bad about them anymore.
Daddy took me to get tested, but unfortunately my vision was 20/20.
I've never seen somebody so disappointed to have good vision. That's when I took Sarah to the mall to get her a pair of fake glasses.
Daddy's the best. I started wearing them whenever I was around Emily, and it worked like a charm. She started liking her own glasses almost immediately.
We all love doing charity work, but to be honest, Alice and I don't find nearly as much time as we should. Sarah, on the other hand, always finds the time.
She volunteers every week at an assisted living facility, a food bank, and an animal shelter. I wish I had her youthful energy.
Thank you. They're just being modest. They both do plenty.
When I was younger, I did what I could. Now all I really do is make the occasional donation.
What about when we went to the beach last summer?
That's true. We spent the day cleaning the beach, and we had a contest among ourselves to see who could collect the most trash bags worth of litter.
Daddy won by a full bag.
It doesn't matter who fills the most bags. What matters is doing our part for the environment.
Every piece of litter you pick up off the beach is one less piece that'll make it into the ocean. That's what Daddy always says. I've been helping out at the shelter for over a year now. I love working with the animals.
We used to be part of the neighborhood pet patrol.
Whenever anyone in our town lost a pet, we'd post flyers and work the phones until that family had their missing member back.
I miss doing that.
We used to be part of the pet patrol, but it's handled online now. I hear it's very efficient, but we don't have the internet in our house, so we're not part of it anymore.
I love volunteering there.
Some of Sarah's best friends are residents there.
She's talking about Harold and Eleanor. I've learned so much from them.
They love having her there too. They tell me all the time.
Walter and I thought we did our fair share of volunteering, but Sarah puts us to shame.
It really shouldn't count as work if it's fun to do. Eleanor was a phone operator for most of her life. From what she says, there was a time when operators had to manually make phone calls go through. I can't even wrap my head around that.
I've known Eleanor for years. She organized the town's first bake sale, and she always had the best Christmas decorations every year when I was growing up.
Our town gets very into Christmas lights. Walking around and looking at all the decorated houses, it's a tradition for us.
I prefer driving around. It's a lot warmer.
Can't disagree with that. Sarah and I don't like the cold weather as much as Walter does.
Oh, I've always loved the winter. Playing outside in the snow is one of my favorite things growing up. I've made more than my fair share of snowmen.
I'm more of a summer girl.
Me too.
When I was little, a tornado hit our town. 2 families lost their homes.
Oh my gosh.
Language, honey.
Sorry, Daddy.
Eleanor hosted a bake sale to raise money for those families.
The bake sale turned into an annual event. They raise money for a new cause every year.
It's a really big deal. Everyone in town goes.
Alice actually runs the bake sale now. She took over for Eleanor when she retired.
Sarah used to only volunteer there once a month. She wanted to work more, but they didn't need the help.
True, but when Sarah wants something, she finds a way to make it happen.
While working there, I learned that a lot of the local homeless people were illiterate.
She talked them into letting her use their facility to hold a literacy class once a week.
It's every Friday night from 6 to 9. There wasn't a lot of attendance at first, but it's a pretty full class now. And I've made some good friends there too.
It's the one night a week that I let Sarah stay out until 9:30 now. I don't want her coming home that late, but she's really making a difference in people's lives.
Harold is the friendliest person you'll ever meet. He can go on for hours about the past.
He used to own the hardware store in town when I was a kid. They had a toy section that was only a few feet wide, but it felt like a full toy store to us kids.
You know, the way you're going on about the past makes you sound a little like Harold.
Well, I don't think I'm quite the storyteller Harold is. He really likes to go into detail.
That's true. He once told me a story about toilet paper that lasted for 20 minutes. It was a good story.
We've all heard that one. Harold likes to go on and on about how toilet paper rolls have gotten smaller and smaller over the years. So now you have to buy a 12-pack of toilet paper just to get the same amount of toilet paper that used to come in a 4-pack.
He has a point. I mean, if they still made them like they used to, my grocery trips would be a lot easier. I know people who have internet in their homes, and it does seem pretty useful, but there is a lot of bad stuff online.
I've been online, and there's a lot of good stuff on there too.
I'm sure it has its uses. It's just too easy to stumble across unpleasant language or other bad things. I just don't want it in my home.
Walter's dental practice does have its own website. People can book appointments online.
My secretary Janet runs the site for me. We have internet at the office, and she is great at using it. She spends some of her downtime on a website called the TikTok.
Oh, I've never heard of that one. What is it for?
Honestly, I have no idea. Janet has showed it to me multiple times, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
I've known Janet for years. She's in my book club.
I play golf with her husband Frank. They're good people.
Frank and Janet invited us up to their fishing cabin this weekend, but we had to turn them down.
We didn't want to be rude by declining, but fishing really isn't our cup of tea.
I just don't see how snatching another life form from their home could be fun. What did those poor fishies ever do to us?
One thing you should never do is stiff a service worker. Tips are most of their income.
I'm ashamed to admit I am guilty of that myself. There was a time where I didn't know you were supposed to tip housekeepers when you stayed at a hotel. I'd been traveling for years before I realized it. I have no idea how many housekeepers I stiffed without realizing it.
A lot of people aren't sure when they're supposed to tip and when they aren't. It's a big problem.
Well, I don't use a smartphone myself, but I hear one of the big problems these days is people don't know they're supposed to tip app workers.
I thought everyone knew that one. We're a flip phone family.
I love flip phones. They're inexpensive, the battery lasts a full week, and they don't break when you drop them.
I like knowing Sarah has plenty of charge on her phone in case she needs a ride.
Well, you know, if I had a smartphone, I wouldn't have to bother you or Daddy when I need a ride. I could just use an app.
She's talking about those rideshare services. I just don't understand those. I mean, when I was growing up, we were taught never to talk to strangers on the internet and not to get into a car with a stranger. But now there's an app that literally lets you summon a stranger on the internet so you can get in their car. I don't understand why they're so popular.
I'm sure there's plenty of useful apps on those things, but everybody that I know that has a smartphone, they just text each other. I prefer having to call someone. It's more of a social interaction for me.
Walter likes the winter, but you will not catch me outside if there's snow on the ground.
We've never helped Daddy shovel snow once. We just stay inside with the heat cranked up.
Believe me, they more than make up for it in the summertime. I can't remember the last time I watered the lawn.
We do love finding excuses to work outside during the summer.
I'm starting a charity car wash. I already have a bunch of other girls signed up. We're starting on Memorial Day.
I love the car wash idea. There are always plenty of worthy charities that need the money.
Plus, it's a lot of fun. It's like getting to go to a water park for free. I was walking to my next class when a kid I didn't know dropped a pack of cigarettes. I instinctively picked them up for him, but just as I did, a teacher happened to see me holding them and sent me to the principal's office. I couldn't say they weren't mine without telling on the other kids, so I got suspended.
It worked out for the best. The kid eventually felt bad that Sarah was taking the blame for him and told the principal what really happened. Then he later became Sarah's first boyfriend.
It's not what it sounds like. A couple of girls at school were playing a prank on this kid, Tommy. He was really unpopular. They pretended he had a secret admirer and started passing him all these fake notes. They were just building up his hopes to crush them. Eventually, so many kids got in on the prank that nobody even knew where it started. I didn't want to see him get hurt, so I pretended I was the admirer and we dated for 2 months. He turned out to be a nice guy, but I was only 17 at the time and nowhere near ready for a boyfriend yet. I love water parks. One of my favorite things about living in Utah is that we have so many of them.
I'm a bit of a water slide enthusiast myself.
I'm not really into the water slides. My favorite part is the lazy river.
I think Sarah's favorite part is all the attention she gets from boys when she gets to wear her bathing suit.
That's nice too, but I've always loved water parks. My parents used to take me all the time when I was growing up.
My favorite ride is the one where you have to cross a bunch of lily pads while holding on to the rope.
Walter always makes it across, though. I mean, that defeats the purpose. You're supposed to fall in. What's the point of going to a water park if you're not going to get wet?
I like the challenge. It's hard to get across. Plus, my feet get wet.
I don't think he gets it. My mom and dad live just a few blocks away from us, so I get to see them all the time.
Oh, did you think Sarah was our daughter? We get that a lot.
I just don't understand why so many people think we're related. I don't see the resemblance.
Yeah, Sarah and I aren't related, but we are married to the same daddy.
We met Sarah when she was 18 and fell in love right away. She became my second wife 6 months later.
Well, I could never live up to his first wife, though. Alice is amazing.
Oh, Sarah's just being modest. She is an incredible wife.
She's a crackerjack in the bedroom as well.
That's just because I had such a great teacher.
Oh, well, Sarah's the real teacher. Did you know that you could use your feet in the bedroom? We had never heard of such a thing, but Sarah showed us, and now, by golly, Walter can't get enough of it.
And don't forget the thing you do that Alice likes. I have no idea how she comes up with these things.
Well, I didn't invent them. I learned them on the internet.
Well, the internet doesn't seem that bad. Maybe we should think about getting a computer.
Can we, Daddy, please?
My name is Becca.
And I am Todd.
We're from New York City. This is where Todd said we had to stay when we came to Vegas.
Yeah, we're in town for our wedding.
We actually ran into the owner of the hotel while we were checking in, and he overheard us saying we were getting married, so he upgraded us to a big suite,
Yeah.
which was such a nice surprise.
And he was even more surprised when he asked if we wanted to be interviewed for your book. I mean, this is certainly turning out to be a memorable trip.
I would hope it'd already be memorable, what with our wedding and all.
Oh, of course. That was a poor choice of words on my part. A Las Vegas wedding was her idea. I told her we could get married anywhere that she wanted.
Vegas seemed perfect. It's affordable, and it can double as a honeymoon.
Oh, plus it has casinos. She loves those.
Oh, and it has strip clubs. Todd loves those. He actually made a list of all the clubs he wants to see before we leave.
It was just a list of places. There's one club on the list, but it's places that I want to see from the outside.
Todd grew up in a very religious household, so he can be a little embarrassed about these things. It's okay, sweetie. I've seen your list. It's perfectly normal for a man to want to see naked ladies.
I wanted to get married in a church back home, but Becca wanted to do something original. Isn't that right, dear?
Yet we also couldn't afford a big wedding. You know, Todd's work has been a little slow lately.
I'm an actor, and all actors have dry spells. Just part of the industry. Plus, Becca has a lot of debt, so we probably shouldn't be spending too much money right now.
Right now he's actually playing Elmo in Times Square. He takes his picture with tourists all day. He's so cute in the costume.
Yeah, I'm not Elmo.
Okay. Legally, he is a generic red creature, but we all know who he's supposed to be.
Oh, I mean, I love New York. We have the best sports teams, the best nightclubs, the best restaurants. It's such an incredible place to live.
Even if I didn't have to live there for work, I don't think I could ever move.
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many things you can only get in New York you can't get anywhere else. You should really visit if you haven't been before.
There's this brony convention Todd goes to every year. I mean, even if we moved, he'd have to go back every year. No way he could miss it. It's all he talks about for a month leading up to it. I think street performer is more of an appropriate term. He's never done any sort of stage acting.
But I do have some exciting things lined up, actually. I'm going to be in an upcoming film in New York.
It's a role in an unpaid student film, but it's a great start.
It's a very promising student film. It's going to be seen by a lot of people, and the exposure is worth more than the money, believe me.
It's a film about campus safety. They say that new students are going to see it for years to come. I just wish Todd had booked a speaking part. He has the talent.
Oh, well, thank you, dear. Thank you.
Todd's family is very religious, very devout.
Oh, I'm not as devout as the rest of them.
Oh, no, you're just being modest. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had who insisted on keeping his virginity until we get married. I mean, how impressive is that? Yeah, I took out a lot of student loans. I would have been more than happy going to an affordable law school, but Daddy insisted I go to Harvard if I wanted to work at the family firm. So I will probably be paying that off for years. I don't know why Todd puts up with me and all my baggage.
Don't.
Kennedy, Seymour, and Cartwright. Michael Kennedy's my father. Barbara Cartwright is my mother. It's not the biggest firm in New York, but we do all right.
Oh, I'm not a student. I just responded to an ad on the internet.
He actually dropped out of high school.
I wanted to focus on my career. Yeah, I was actually working for a cell phone company at the time, and it was a great job. I was making good money, and I wanted to move up, but they downsized, and a lot of us lost our jobs.
They laid off all the sign spinners at once, which was such a shame because Todd was so talented at it.
Oh, thank
We
you.
actually met when he was sign spinning on the corner at my apartment. He caught my eye right away. My father doesn't really like Todd.
Oh, maybe at first, but I think we get along better now.
Todd really wants to impress my dad. That's actually part of the reason why we're having this budget wedding. I'm sure Daddy would have paid for a big wedding if I asked, but Todd wants to prove to him that we're self-sufficient.
And we are.
You know, my parents didn't get married until years after they'd already been legal partners. At that point, my mom had already a long list of clients, a really great reputation, so that's why she kept her own last name.
Yeah, plus, they would have had to change the name of the law firm. I mean, they had to print new business cards, order new signs. It would have been a big hassle, right?
That's why I'm keeping my last name. So if everything goes according to plan right before my dad retires, I will get made partner at the firm. That way there will still be a Kennedy in the name. Also, Becca Boner just doesn't really have a great ring to it for a lawyer.
Oh, it's not that big of a deal.
It's kind of a big deal. I've had to go over a year without it.
Oh.
So
We've been together for 2 years, dear.
I checked someone off my list last year. We promised we wouldn't have to tell each other that. The baseball player.
Oh.
Yeah. You know that list every couple makes of people they're allowed to sleep with if they ever get the chance to without it being considered cheating?
Yeah, which isn't really fair because I don't sleep with anyone and she knows that. So,
Well, I've been trying to change that for the past 2 years.
I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get into heaven, so.
Really? Well, I've been trying to get him into heaven for the last 2 years with no luck.
Well, aren't you supposed to be only putting famous people on your list who you don't know?
Well, I didn't know him when I made the list. I just so happened to meet him a year later.
Oh, convenient.
Besides, Todd put my sister on his list.
That was meant as a compliment alone, okay? She knows that I would never sleep with anyone besides Becca.
Yeah, my sister did not take it as a compliment, and she's still kind of mad about it. My little sister Rachel, she's so competitive. It's kind of annoying. So I was kind of a prodigy in middle school, so I skipped a grade. And then she skipped 2 grades. And then I graduated 5th in my class at Harvard. So she graduated 4th. It's like her only goal in life is to be just marginally better than me at everything she does.
The two of them have been at it since they were very young. Everything is a competition between them.
Yeah, competition, I rarely win. But luckily she did not go into the legal field. She took the easy route. Medicine. I'm kidding. No, if she had joined the family firm, I'm sure she would have been made partner 2 years before me. Despite being 2 years younger, but it's fine.
It doesn't bother me. If she wants to keep her own last name to help her career, I'm in full support.
Todd's actually thinking about taking my last name. That way, if we ever adopt children, we won't have to explain why we have different last names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Becca here loves the idea of adopting children.
Also, we can't really have children of our own because Todd's been sterile ever since his motorcycle accident.
Yeah. Oh, at least my accident was cool.
His friend Greg jumped over a bunch of people on his motorcycle trying to make a viral video. So Todd and all these guys, they were laid down head to toe leading up to the ramp. And Greg almost made it, but his back tire came down right between Todd's legs.
We don't need to describe every detail.
Oh, right. I actually have it on video if you want me to send it to you.
That's not necessary. Yeah, Greg is my best friend. He's a great guy. He's a guitar player.
No, he's hilarious. He does this bit every time I see him where he tries to convince me to dump Todd and go out with him instead. It's so funny. It sounds a little mean, but it's obviously a joke. He does it right in front of Todd. I promise you, it's very funny. Maybe you have to be there.
It's not that funny.
No, it's very funny.
Not that funny. Yeah, oh yeah, Greg is in a band. They're always trying to get me to join.
It's a Kiss tribute band called Hug with 2 G's. Their whole gimmick is that they only play acoustic versions of Kiss songs.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm not going to join.
Well, that and Todd only plays the calliope. That's that steam organ they use in the circus, you know. Kiss only uses it in one song, so I don't really see why Todd would have to join.
We had one in our house when we were growing up, and I actually didn't have any interest in playing it, but I learned it because it was there. So
He's kind of shy about performing in front of other people. I totally used to be the same way when performing gymnastics in front of an audience, so I totally get it. He keeps promising he'll play it for me, but he never does.
I promised her that I would play it for her birthday, and I will.
My birthday was 3 days ago.
I meant next year.
Holding you to it.
Okay.
So I just moved out of my parents' house into my parents' apartment building, and I didn't really know my way around the area. So I was running late for a meeting, and when I went outside, I saw Todd spinning his little arrow sign on the corner. So I went up to him and asked for directions, and instead of just telling me where to go, he spun his sign all impressively and pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
That was like the cutest thing.
Oh, well, she came back after a meeting and she asked for my number, and we went on our first date the next day, and I knew she was the one after our first date.
Mm-hmm. I knew it after the third.
Oh, did you?
It's a convention for My Little Pony fans.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it sounds.
I mean, lots of adults go. Actually, it's almost entirely adults who go. Yeah, I think the TV show is super sweet, but I've only been with Todd once. They don't really like girls going. I think it kind of messes with the whole bro part of brony. My parents own a small apartment building on the Upper East Side. They let me live there rent-free. I just pay for utilities. Todd's gonna move in with me once we're married. Apricot's gonna have to move out, but it's totally gonna be worth it. My puppy, her name's Apricot. Unfortunately, Todd is severely allergic to dogs, so she can't be living with us, but I'm sure it won't be hard to find someone who wants to adopt an adorable little teacup Pomeranian. I'll miss her, though. We streamed The Notebook at my place. All my past boyfriends had refused to watch it with me. Todd not only agreed, but he cried multiple times while watching it. I knew right then if he ever proposed to me, I'd have to say yes.
Oh, there were a lot of them. Am I right?
They were all so full of themselves. They were either rich or famous, or both rich and famous. The worst combination. That doesn't impress me.
They weren't as great as they sound, okay?
No, some were actually very cool. But I don't really talk to them anymore. Todd gets a little jealous when I do. But Todd hangs out with all of his ex-girlfriends, except Lily, of course. But, I'm not really worried about them. If he's not sleeping with me, he's definitely not sleeping with them, so.
Oh, Lily, she was just the worst. I wasted 6 months of my life dating her, and that is all that needs to be said.
She used to physically abuse Todd. I'm so proud of him for breaking up with her. Even more for talking about it.
It's not really what she makes it sound like. She doesn't know the whole picture.
I mean, Todd could have easily defended himself. But the thing about Todd is he would never hit a woman. Ever.
Well, no real man ever would.
Especially Lily. I mean, I don't think I could hit a 95-pound elderly woman either.
Yeah.
I used to date this famous singer. I'm not going to name drop because that's gauche, but you definitely know who he is.
A lot of women have been with musicians, and to be honest with you, we all know that musicians are not one-woman men.
It was actually pretty serious between us. I mean, he asked me to move in with him. I met his parents. It was kind of the real deal.
Oh, well, I guess he was a good one, but I feel bad for her because he broke up with her.
Actually, I never told Todd this, but I was still with the singer when I met him. I didn't break up with the singer until we became official. It's crazy to think, if I hadn't met Todd when I did, I totally could have been married to the wrong person right now.
So, you cheated on him with me?
That's why I never told you this. Todd's proposal was the most unique one I ever had.
How many people have proposed to you before me?
You were the fourth. I've told you this. Oh, the first guy was at the Eiffel Tower. Ugh, so cliche. Second guy did the whole, wedding ring at the bottom of a champagne flute at the 5-star restaurant on Valentine's Day. We've all seen it.
Yeah, these guys have no originality.
The third guy was the worst. He had the proposal up on the Jumbotron at a basketball game. Like, how was that supposed to impress me? He literally owned the basketball team. He could make it say anything he wanted. That sort of stuff, it doesn't go far with me.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just the lucky one. What's the next question?
Okay, so Todd was helping me lose weight at the time.
She asked me to help.
And, I'd asked this of other boyfriends before, and they always dismissed me. They were like, "Hun, you're perfect as you are." And I was like, I don't want you dismissing me. If something's important to me, I want my boyfriend to take it seriously,
Again,
too.
I was just trying to help. That's all I was.
Oh, you did more than that. He tracked my weight loss. He kept a log of everything I was eating. I mean, it was like having my own personal trainer at home.
Yeah, it was she laid out everything she wanted me to do. I just did what she asked me to.
And there was like this stubborn last few pounds I just could not seem to get off no matter what. So Todd told me he would marry me if I hit my target weight. And that was all the incentive I needed. I shed those last 3 pounds, stat. I lost it so fast he didn't even have time to save up for the ring.
Well, I thought I was going to have more time.
I literally just didn't eat for 4 days. It was all the motivation I needed. We just decided to skip the whole engagement ring thing and the wedding band thing. It's such an outdated concept. Plus, Todd thinks it's a waste of money.
Well, engagement rings are a scam. There's a great Adam Ruins Everything video about that, actually.
Yeah, plus I deal with a lot of high-profile clients at work, so if I had a ring, it would have to be huge, something that Todd couldn't afford, really. I know that sounds shallow, but, people really do judge you for the clarity and size of your diamond, so it's best I just don't have one at all. Our firm represents a number of well-known clientele. I'm not really at liberty to name names, but there's a few athletes and politicians who you might have heard of.
I was actually an athlete. I was the star player on my high school football team. And I would have gone pro. Everyone would know my name, but I had a knee injury, so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at him. He would have totally made the NFL had it not been for the injury. I mean, once he kicked a 20-yard field goal in a high school game, that is extremely unheard of, from what I understand. I almost went pro in gymnastics, but that didn't work out for me either. When I was very little, I trained under the famous Italian gymnastics coach, Sergio Endolini. My parents were convinced I was going to make it to the Olympics. I had
Okay.
the
Stop.
leotards
Stop.
and...
That's enough. Sergio Endolini isn't a real person, all right? We're not married. The only reason I said we were married is because I wanted to get a free room upgrade at the hotel.
As you can tell, he's a cheapskate.
Well, as you can tell, she is a hooker.
Okay, I'm not a hooker. I am a sex worker.
Oh, so I'm so
and we didn't
sorry.
even have sex because you were busy crying the whole time.
Not
so...
true, not true, not true.
No, it is kind of true. The only reason I'm still sitting next to this person is because I wanted to be paid for this book, so... And now, you've ruined it, so thank you.
I ruined it.
Yeah, you
You're
did.
the one who made me look like a complete loser.
He kind of is.
You know what? I'm sorry for wasting your time. Goodbye.
Can I still get paid?
Well, that's surprising. I would have thought she'd be more emotionally invested in the Bellflower after running her magic act here for so long. I guess I must have misjudged her. That poor woman never catches a break, does she? I don't suppose it would be logical to leave a hotel to someone who's not going to be alive much longer than I am. Well, I did not see that coming. I mean, I only considered Sarah because, well, she seemed like such a sweet, wholesome girl. I had no idea she was married to an older man who already had a wife. I don't know what to think about that. Well, that's disappointing. I guess there's no reason to consider them as potential heirs anymore. All four candidates have potential problems, but someone has to take over the hotel. I don't have any more potential heirs, and I've run out of time to keep searching. Now, you've spoken to all of them. Who do you recommend? I'm looking for someone to take over the hotel. If she wants nothing to do with Vegas, she'll probably just sell it. And that defeats the purpose of me selecting her as an heir. I hadn't thought about it that way. She might not feel a connection to this place right now, but once she becomes the owner, that may change. I'll have my lawyer put in a stipulation that if she inherits the Bellflower, she cannot sell it, just to be safe. Would you like to tell her? It only seems fair that you be the one to give her the good news. That's surprising. I would have thought she'd be more emotionally invested in the Bellflower after running her magic act here for so long. I guess I must have misjudged her. That poor woman never catches a break, does she? I don't suppose it would be logical to leave a hotel to someone who's not going to be alive much longer than I am. Well, I did not see that coming. I mean, I only considered Sarah because, well, she seemed like such a sweet, wholesome girl. I had no idea she was married to an older man who already had a wife. I don't know what to think about that. Well, that's disappointing. I guess there's no reason to consider them as potential heirs anymore. All four candidates have potential problems, but someone has to take over the hotel. I don't have any more potential heirs, and I've run out of time to keep searching. Now, you've spoken to all of them. Who do you recommend? I thought you said she had an untreatable brain tumor. You're right. I should know better than anyone what it's like to have a terminal condition. I've been struggling with mine for some time, and I have a privileged life. I can't imagine how hard this must be for Mallory. If inheriting my estate gives her the life that she deserves, even if it's a short one, then all the better for my legacy. If she can move into the hotel right away, then I can spend the rest of the time I have teaching her how to run the hotel successfully. Well, she loves staying here so much now. I expect she'll be delighted by the idea. And you're the one that gave her the opportunity, so I think it's only fair that you are the one that gives her the good news. That's surprising. I would have thought she'd be more emotionally invested in the Bellflower after running her magic act here for so long. I guess I must have misjudged her. That poor woman never catches a break, does she? I don't suppose it would be logical to leave a hotel to someone who's not going to be alive much longer than I am. Well, I did not see that coming. I mean, I only considered Sarah because, well, she seemed like such a sweet, wholesome girl. I had no idea she was married to an older man who already had a wife. I don't know what to think about that. Well, that's disappointing. I guess there's no reason to consider them as potential heirs anymore. All four candidates have potential problems, but someone has to take over the hotel. I don't have any more potential heirs, and I've run out of time to keep searching. Now, you've spoken to all of them. Who do you recommend? Well, the only reason I was considering Sarah was because she seemed so virtuous. But now that I know she's in a 3-person marriage with 2 older partners, I see no reason to choose her. You make a good point. I may disagree with one of her life choices, but I doubt I could find a more caring person with strong moral values anywhere. Did you know that she spends her Friday nights teaching the homeless how to read? I didn't know that illiteracy was an issue among the homeless, but she's actively doing something about it. She's the obvious choice. Would you like to tell her? You deserve to be the one who breaks the good news. Well, that's surprising. I would have thought she'd be more emotionally invested in the Bellflower after running her magic act here for so long. I guess I must have misjudged her. That poor woman never catches a break, does she? I don't suppose it would be logical to leave a hotel to someone who's not going to be alive much longer than I am. Well, I did not see that coming. I mean, I only considered Sarah because, well, she seemed like such a sweet, wholesome girl. I had no idea she was married to an older man who already had a wife. I don't know what to think about that. Well, that's disappointing. I guess there's no reason to consider them as potential heirs anymore. All four candidates have potential problems, but someone has to take over the hotel. I don't have any more potential heirs, and I've run out of time to keep searching. Now, you've spoken to all of them. Who do you recommend? Well, if they're not really getting married or spending their honeymoon here, then every reason I had for considering them is invalid. Well, that's wonderful. Well, they may not be spending their honeymoon here, but if this is the place where they got engaged and where they found out that they were having a child, then the Bellflower may hold a special place in their hearts. I think that they might be the right choice to take over the hotel. No, wait. I think there's a creative way to make sure that the Bellflower stays in good hands for a long time. I can leave the hotel to their child to make sure that it's guaranteed to stay in their family. I'll call my lawyer right now and have him get the paperwork ready. Can you call Becca and Todd and have them meet with you again tonight so you can deliver the good news?